It doesn't matter how good of a teacher you are at explaining different concepts or how engaging your lessons are if your kids are not learning. And it's really hard to learn when the class is super, super chatty. When your students will not stop talking, it means that then they aren't focused. The kids who aren't talking still can't focus because it's too loud. You can't focus and nobody is learning anything. Because of that, one of the most important pieces of classroom management is managing the talking. Now, the good thing is there's lots of strategies that can help you with chatty classes and help you get kids quiet. The bad thing is that not all of them work, or at least not all of them work for every class. Unfortunately, every group is very different, and so strategies that work with some students won't work with other students and vice versa. Today in this video, we're going to talk about lots of different strategies that you can use for chatty classes so that way, hopefully you can find, kind of look at it like a menu. Like here's some options. Find the options that work for your classes. I've had some classes where, this always works and then here's a class and it doesn't work anymore. So however, whatever your kids are like, whatever they're doing, let's talk about how to deal with chatty classes in elementary music so that the kids can actually learn and have fun and learn music. Okay? Okay. If we haven't met, hi, I'm Becca. I'm an elementary music teacher. I've been teaching for a lot of years, 9 years. 9 years? 9 years. And I have learned a lot about how to deal with chatty classes at 2 different schools, every different type of student and class that you could possibly imagine. So let's talk about it. Okay, let's start out with the basics. So before we get into like the strategies, the basics are you need a classroom management strategy. You need a classroom management strategy. So something that you use all of the time with all of your classes to make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do. Without a classroom management strategy, you're not doing much, okay? Everything's gonna be a lot harder. So start with this, make sure this is in place first. Personally, I use teacher versus student points, which is a whole brain teaching tactic. And so up on the board, I have some magnets. I have a thing that says student and a thing that says teacher. And if they are working hard as a team, they get a point. And if I am working harder than they are, like if I have to keep repeating myself or things like that, and that's what I tell them, if I'm working harder because I'm repeating myself or I have to pause and wait for you or different things like that, that's when I earn points. And then at the end, we do their points minus my points is whatever reward you decide. So I've heard people use that as like free time. With chatty classes, you could use that as minutes of talking time even at the end of class. That could be really a good strategy actually. I've heard people, I used to like add it up and then after so many points you would get like a free day where you got to play games. What I do is we have what we call class gator bucks with the whole school. So they get those from that, and that I really lucked out when I got to this school because that was already in place and I was like fabulous. And so they earn them all throughout the school to earn like pizza parties and dress downs and stuff like that. So that's what we do in my class. In addition, I also do an individual classroom management strategy called the card system. So it's just like soccer. If I have to speak to you, it's a yellow card, which is a short timeout at your seat. If we're still having trouble, it's an orange card, which is a long timeout away from the class. And if we're still having trouble, it's a red card. I call home, you have silent lunch, the whole enchilada. So that's the system, the 2 systems I use. So we have the whole group and then we have the small group or the individual, so that way we're taking care of what we need to take care of. I'll link videos about both of those down below because we don't want to go super deep in them, but I just want to make sure that you do have strategies in place. Okay? Okay, so the first thing you need to make sure you have is your classroom management strategy. Second principle before we get into tactics is never talk when the kids are talking. If you're talking while they're talking, that sends the signal that 1, whatever you're saying is not important, and 2, that it's okay for them to talk while you're talking. Plus, it's going to wear you out, it's going to kill your voice, and it's going to make you mad. Okay, do not talk while the kids are talking, ever. I know it's not hard. It's not easy. It's really, really hard to not talk while the kids are talking. It's really hard, but it's really important. And next up is stop talking. If you're talking too much, then it's going to be hard for kids to sit still because listen, we all like to talk. Even like observe at a staff meeting, like the teachers are talking to each other too. Like it's a thing. It's just a human thing. Like we want to connect. So instead of being like mad at the kids for wanting to talk all the time, like make sure you're not talking. If you're talking for 45 minutes straight, like your class needs to change. You need to incorporate different things so that they're engaged and they're having fun, and it's not just you know, lecturing at the front because it's not college. The next one is to review the expectations. So before we start an activity, I will review the expectations of what I expect them to do. So if I need to talk for 5 minutes, I'll be like, hey, right now I'm looking for people who have their feet to themselves, hands to themselves, eyes up front. I say that a million times a day. Not even kidding. I say it so many times a day. Or if I'm, you know, expecting students to stop working and listen, and then I will say, everyone should be frozen, eyes on me, listening so that you can hear the directions. But making sure that I review those expectations helps a lot. It's a simple thing, but it does help a lot. And finally, before we get into the strategies, is tell them it's important. Sometimes when we really need to like actually have a time where we're sitting and listening, I tell them, I say, hey, right now for the next like 5 or 10 minutes, you know, we're going to talk about XYZ. It's really important because we're, you know, learning this concept and you need to pay attention so that you will understand what's going on. If you're not listening, you will be confused, and I don't want you to be confused. I want you to understand. And just having that like, hey, stop and listen, this is important, can be helpful. Now, if you say it every week or all the time, it's gonna, you know, wear off. But if you have like something really important, make sure that you tell them, hey, this is important. These are the directions. This is important that you listen so that you do the activity correctly. Like those kind of things, just let them know that it's important, because they might, I mean, they should know that you're talking for a purpose, but they don't. They assume that you're just talking because you feel like talking, and they don't realize like, oh, she's talking because she's actually trying to tell me something important. So tell them it's important, and then they will understand a lot better. All right, now that we've gone through like the basics of dealing with chatty classes, let's talk strategies. So these are lots of things. Again, look at it like a menu, use whatever works, and remember that some things are going to work better with some classes than other classes. And also remember that you need to do something consistently for it to work at all. Okay. So number 1 is callbacks. This is probably the most popular one, but basically this just means that you do something as an attention getter, people call it, where I say something, you respond, and then it goes quiet. So an example could be class, class. And they could say yes, yes, and however you say it, they say it. Class, class, yes, yes, class, class, yes, yes, whatever. Number 2, this one is my personal favorite that I actually do use in my classroom. I say talk less, and the kids say smile more. And same thing, if I go talk less, then they say smile more. And every once in a while I get a kid who gets what that's from, and it's hilarious. They'll be like, oh, it's really funny. And also I'm like, you shouldn't be watching that, but it's really funny. So I enjoy that one. Number 3, this one's always a hit. Macaroni and cheese, everybody freeze. I like that one because it emphasizes that everybody freeze, and they're much more likely to actually freeze. Hocus pocus, everybody focus. That's one of my favorite ones for October. And then one I've been using a lot is one that they use in theater, where you say quiet on set or quiet in the house, and they say quiet, quiet. These are some different ones that you can use where you say something, they say something, and there's a bajillion of them online. Like look it up on Pinterest, you'll find a million of them, and it's just a way to get their attention. I also, you know, some people do the clapping and all that kind of stuff. So I have like a few that I kind of use the most that work for me. So I will use quiet in the house. I use talk less, smile more. And then I use where they echo me, and I'll go like whoop, and like all sorts of crazy things like that. Those are those 3. And then my other favorite one is I'll say, you know, if you can hear my voice, clap once. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. If you can hear my voice, take a deep breath in. I like that one because you don't have to teach them anything for them to be able to do it. Whatever you choose, pick one, stick with it, and practice it. So when I introduce it, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to say talk less. You're going to say smile more. Talk less, smile more. Talk less, smile more. And I'm like, okay. And then when I say it, you're going to freeze and you're going to put your eyes on me. Talk less, smile more. And then I stop and I look around and I'll be like, thank you so-and-so, thank you so-and-so, thank you so-and-so for all the eyes. We'll practice it a couple of times. And then we'll practice it where I have them pretend to talk to each other. And then I'll say it and they have to turn around and look. And I make a big deal about it. And since I use those points, the class will get a point when they do a good job. If I say it and it doesn't work, I get a point. So that's something that really helps. And then that way they know that like now it's time to stop. So that's number one, probably the most important, is have a callback. Number two is 0 transitions or minimal transitions. Anytime you stop an activity and start a new activity, it's like an opportunity to talk. If there's some dead space, they're gonna wanna chit chat. So make as few transitions as possible. If you need to go from one activity to another activity, think about it ahead of time and think about how you're going to make that transition. If they need to clean things up, what's the fastest way you can do that? What's the quietest way you can do that? If they need to move from here to here, what's the quietest way we can do that? What's the easiest way we can do that? Think about those things, because the more transitions you have, the more opportunity they're going to have for talking. Number 3 is the stupidest thing I have ever told you in my life. Define talking. I actually don't tell them no one is talking. I haven't done that in years. I say I shouldn't hear any sounds. Why? Because have you ever had a time where you got 2 kids talking and you're like, stop talking, and they go, I'm not talking? And now sometimes they're straight up lying because they were talking. But what I came to figure out is that a lot of students assumed when you're like, stop talking, that you're like having a conversation back and forth. And sometimes it's like, you know, hey, you're kicking me. Or, you know, they ask a question and I answer, and they were not associating that with talking, because they're like just answering a question, or they're just saying something quick and they're not like carrying on a conversation. So they like don't think that's talking. Should they think that's talking? Yes. But if you've ever had that conversation before, you know that that's a thing. And because I was like, what is happening? Because it would sometimes be like my good kids and they like look at me like I was insane. And I'm like, your lips are moving and words are coming out. That's talking. So I don't say stop talking anymore. I actually say I should hear silence, or I should not hear any sounds. There should be no noises, because that also includes, you know, the kid who's like, I can be like, no, there's no noises. And so phrasing it that way has helped a lot. I get a lot less than like, I wasn't talking, because that is like, oh, if you want to make my blood boil, that is the way, and it is not fun. So even though it shouldn't be a thing, it is. Number 4 is ditch the circle. Y'all, I know, I teach elementary music. I know we love a circle. We love a circle time, but here's the problem. If we're singing in a circle, it's hard to look at the teacher. Their default is looking at each other, which means that then they're going to immediately be talking. Same thing, when I walk into a classroom and the kids are all sitting at tables, I'm like, absolutely not. Because their default setting is looking at each other, which means their default setting is to talk. And that's the reason they do that, is to promote collaboration. But if you're trying to get them to listen, that's not helpful. So I don't sit in circles in my room unless it's for a reason. Our default setting is in rows where we're facing the front, because that implies, hey, I'm looking at the teacher, I'm looking at the board, I'm paying attention. And then when we need to, we get into a circle. We get into a circle, I mean, probably every week, but I do it for the activity. I give the instructions and then we get in the circle. Or it's for this song, it's for that song. It's not when I'm trying to get their attention, because it's hard to see me, and the default setting is to talk instead of to look at the teacher, and I don't love that. So if we need to sit in a circle for an activity, we were playing a game in kindergarten today, we were sitting in a circle, but we start in rows and then we go to a circle. Okay, if we're getting in groups, we start in rows and then we go get in groups. That way they can focus when they need to. Next up is make sure they're doing something. So like give them something to sing, give them something to do. If they're bored, they're gonna talk. Okay, so it's not just let me talk forever and ever and ever, but instead give them something to do. Have them sing along, have them keep the beat, have them like do something. Stop. Next one, actually, well, I don't know what number I'm at, whatever the next number is ask, don't tell. So instead of let me tell you all the things, put something up on the board. Ask them questions. Ask for someone to read. ask, you know, like have them figure it out, or just have them figure it out. The day that I realized these children could figure out so much more than I thought they could changed my life. So instead of me telling them everything, I look at my lesson plans and I'm like, what can they figure out? For example, really specific, when I'm teaching about measures and bar lines, I don't go, this is a measure, this is a bar line. I throw the music up on the board and I look at it and I go, what do you think this line is? And then I let them chat it out with each other to see if anyone can figure out what the lines are. They're bar lines. I know their bar lines. I know their measures. I know all those things. But I want them to figure it out first. And then we can talk about it and then I'll share it. But they get the opportunity to figure it out themselves. A lot of times if we have a song, I'll teach them, you know, maybe I'll teach them melody, maybe I'll teach them rhythm, maybe I'll tell them what the notes are. And then I'm like, all right, go to the xylophones, figure it out. Give them 10 minutes. A lot of them will figure it out. They won't all figure it out, but a lot of them will figure it out. It's much more interesting than like, okay, first we do this, then we do this. Like, let them figure things out. They will talk. They will, well, not really they'll talk less, but they will put their talking to good use. Another example of putting talking to good use and breaking up so they're not just sitting and watching the whole time is the strategy mirrors up. This is also from whole brain teaching, and it's one of my favorite strategies. I use it almost every day. Actually, I do use it every day. I use it in every single class. I say mirrors up, and they put their mirrors up, and they say mirrors up, and they put their mirrors up, and then they repeat after you, and you take whatever it is and make it short. So for example, today we learned about improvisation. So I said mirrors up, mirrors up. Improvisation means I make up my music on the spot. Mirrors away. And then once your mirrors go away, then they can stop. Anytime we have a new vocabulary word, we use mirrors up. Anytime I need them to remember something, we use mirrors up. I use it throughout the class so that way they're doing something. Or I'll just say, all right, repeat this, you know. This is, you know, our new word is improvisation. Can you say improvisation? And then they're like saying it. So they're doing something. They're using their voice. They can't talk and also do that. Another whole brain teaching strategy that'll help you is the next one, which is teach. Okay, so for this one, you teach them something and then they teach a partner. So they basically tell the partner whatever you taught them. So for this one, you go teach and they go, okay. And they turn to a partner or a small group and they tell their partner or small group what they learned, what they have learned about. While they do this, walk around and make sure that everyone's on task. And a lot of times I find it helpful if I'm like, okay, now the other person talk, like let one person talk and then let the other person talk. That's a good strategy. Another way to do that is just to do a turn and talk, which is literally just turn, talk. This is a great strategy, again, to put their talking to good use. So they're not just sitting there, not doing anything. And admin loves seeing turn and talk. So it could be anything from like turn and tell the person next to you what you learned today. Turn and tell the person next to you your favorite part of the book. Turn and ask the person next to you what they think about this. You know, like you can do it about literally anything. Okay. Okay. Now for like bigger things, doing small group work helps a lot because these are all strategies for like putting the talking to good use. So small group work helps so much. If you are doing all the talking, they will be bored. If they're in small groups, they got to figure things out. They got to learn on their own. They have to do things and then they'll actually learn, which is what we actually want them to do, right? Right. So using small group activities helps a lot. This is just anything where you got kids in small groups and they're working on things. So for example, this week, 2nd grade, we're putting So and Me on the staff. We did a few together where we do some on the board. Then we get some whiteboards and they're drawing notes on the staff where maybe I make a pattern. So I'll do me, so, and they have to write the notes on the staff. And then they get into groups and they do the same activity with each other so that way they're in control. They have a lot more information and they get to do that. Or small group games. Like there's so many things you can do in small groups. Actually, I have a 12-page PDF freebie that is all about activities you can use in small groups and centers, and it goes by like concepts. So it's like rhythm ideas, solfege ideas, instruments to the orchestra ideas. And the amazing thing about that is that most of them are very, very, very little prep. So definitely go check that out if that is something you're interested in doing. Okay, now some classes you can do all the things and it's still hard and it's just really rough. So what do you do when it's just really rough and just not getting better? Number one, change the seating chart. If you have, okay, number 0.5, have a seating chart If you don't have a seating chart, we should have started with that because that's probably your problem. But number one is change the seating chart. If you've got a problem, like switch the kids around so that hopefully you can have at least a little bit less talking. I've had some I've had classes that have been so spread out. They've taken up every inch of the classroom because they would not stop talking. And they had to sit like 2 feet away from each other. Now, depending on your space, that may or may not be an option, but you can at least arrange people in different ways to discourage the talking. The next one's one I've never actually used before, but I have seen it, and that's called quiet turtles. So I will see if I can find the blog post about this and link it down below. But in this, they had quiet turtles. It was like little pom-poms that were green. And if you were, being quiet, then you would get a pom-pom, and that was your quiet turtle. And, you get to like hold your quiet turtle for the class. And then if you're talking, then your quiet turtle goes away. So this could be a fun strategy, especially with the littles, or you can use this and you can exchange it for a piece of candy or a marshmallow or, whatever. Marshmallows, by the way, are my favorite cheap incentive because it's like $1 for like a huge bag. You can just get the mini ones. It's fine. For the older kids, give them a couple. Okay, like marshmallows, they will do a lot for a marshmallow. Or, a dojo point or a, 5 minutes on the instruments, or whatever you want to do. But just, that could be an option. The next strategy is one that I have used for really extreme cases, and that is talking breaks. So for a talking break, this is for like your chattiest classes who just really cannot stop talking. And what this is you basically give them a few minutes to have a talking break if they're quiet while you're talking. So this would look like this. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to tell you about XYZ. I'm going to talk for about 10 minutes. At the end of this, if you have been quiet, you will get 1 minute or 2 minutes or whatever to talk to a friend about whatever you want. If you're talking while I'm talking, you will not get this. And this is really effective for your really chatty classes who just really can't stop talking. The hard thing about this is you do have to time them, and you have to time a lot of things. So you have to be like, I'm going to talk for this long, and then we're going to, or you could do like during this activity, if you're quiet, then you would get a talking break or something like that. And usually it's just 1 or 2 minutes of like whisper is usually what I tell them, a whisper talking break. And that works out pretty well. The next one is Blurt tallies. So this is if you have those classes that keep calling out, and this can be an individual thing or a whole group thing. But like if you have the teacher versus student points I talked about at the beginning, maybe like 3 blurts equals 1 teacher point, or maybe every blurt is a teacher point. Or if it's an individual student, you can keep track of that and then have a punishment or maybe a reward if we only blurt out this many times, that way, so that you can just keep track of that and make sure that they are doing that. It can be effective with individuals or with whole group, although it can be kind of hard to do. And the last one is one we maybe aren't the most happy with, and that is change the lesson. Sometimes it's not the kids, it's the lesson. And sometimes you just need to change the lesson and it's just not working out, or it's not engaging. So if your lesson is not fun and engaging, you might need to change the lesson. You might need to add a game. You might need to add some instruments. Maybe you just need to change the format. Make something longer, make something shorter. If they're not into it, change it. It's a lot better than fighting for the lesson that you wrote down. Okay? Okay. Now, I know that was a lot of strategies. You're like, oh my gosh, Becca, you have been very chatty about these chatty classes. I know. It's because I've had a lot of different students in a lot of different classes, and every class has their own little like class personality, and some of them just respond to different things. So there are things on here that worked with some classes that didn't work with other classes. Some of them are like more extreme cases, whereas others I can get away with not being as fussy about things. And it just is such a class by class basis, which is one of the parts of teaching that makes teaching elementary music really hard, is that all classes are not made equal. They are all different, and they're all different like concoctions of students. And because of that, it can be really challenging because you have to manage so many different personalities, so many different types of classes in the same day, in the same week, you know? I'll have 2 classes back to back that'll be completely different, and you have to deal with that. And usually with no transition time in between. So hopefully some of these are helpful. Grab, you know, start with the ones at the beginning because those were like the more foundational ones. And then once you have those, then like use 1 or 2 strategies and try it out for like a couple of weeks and see how it goes. Stick to it. If you are not consistent, they won't be either. And so once you have that strategy in place for a while, then you can see if it really works or not. And if it doesn't work, then try a different one. It's okay to try something new and abandon something. Okay? Okay. All right. Thank you, friends, for sticking with me all the way here till the end. If you're an elementary music teacher as well, then make sure you hit the subscribe button down below so that you won't miss any of my elementary music lessons and tips and tricks and all that good stuff, which is what we talk about here. And apparently my dog would like me to go. So I'm going to check that out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.